Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the March 19th Environmental Quality Control Board meeting. I will now call the meeting to order. Who would like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pardon me?
Would you like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
Certainly, I can do that.
Fantastic. Let's do it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Planning Manager Temple, would you please call our roll?
Yes. Board Member Villanueva?
Present.
Board Member Depew?
Yes.
Board Member Chair Perrell?
Yes.
Board Member Horning?
Here.
All present.
At this time, members of the public may address the Environmental Quality Control Board regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the board cannot discuss or take action on any items not on the agenda unless authorized by law. Those members of the public wishing to speak are asked to come forward to the microphone, state their name for the record. All speakers will be limited to a period of 5 minutes. Has staff received any written comments for tonight's meeting?
Staff has not.
Okay. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? By motion of the Environmental Quality Control Board, this is the time to notify the public of any changes to the agenda, rearrange the order of the agenda, and provide an opportunity for any member of the board or staff to request an item be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. May I have a motion and a second to approve our agenda?
Madam Chair, I do have another thing I'd like to add to the agenda if we can.
Oh, great.
I would like to add a time change for the meeting. It's just for discussion.
So we would have to put that on the agenda first. And so that would be brought up during board concerns at the end of the meeting, and then with direction for staff to put it on the agenda. And then we would bring it back at the next meeting so that it could be duly noticed for the public before it's voted on.
And my concern is that it's at an awkward time, and so to be more consistent with what we've had as for like the council meetings, perhaps 7 o'clock or another time.
So we'll take it up at the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds great. Okay. So other than that, any other changes to the agenda? And we can approve it as is because we already have an agenda item for items to be considered, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So may I now have a motion?
I'll move that we approve it.
Great. And a second?
I'll second.
Great.
I'll do a roll call. Board Member Villanueva?
Aye.
Board Member Depew?
Aye.
Chair Perrell?
Aye.
Board Member Horning?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Okay. Item A is the approval of the February 19th, 2025 Environmental Quality Control Board minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve our minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second it.
He said it first.
Manager Temple, would you please call the roll for that?
Yes. Board Member Villanueva?
Aye.
Board Member Depew?
Aye.
Chair Perrell?
Yes.
Board Member Horning?
Yes.
Passes 4-0.
Great. Okay. Scheduled matters. Item B is the review of the draft environmental impact report for the Pacific Air Show in Huntington Beach project. Now is the time for the board to conduct discussion of the EIR. And before we dive in, I might ask, if it's okay, Sean, I think I'm looking to you for guidance here. Is it okay if we maybe just talk briefly about how we want to attack this? You know, because it is a large document, there are a number of issues, and maybe we could divide it up into general issues or biological or, certain first and then, I don't know, is that any other ideas?
Yeah, that's commonly done.
Okay. Any other ideas how you guys would like to review this together?
Yeah, I think, kind of how the document was put together, maybe if we want to follow kind of the flow of the chapters, or if we want to just chapter by chapter perhaps, or maybe, I don't know if you seem very prepared, maybe you have something already kind of written up, like a flow.
Well, I've got some concern, just
Yeah.
a couple of concerns from the entire document. So I don't know if from my perspective, I don't know if we need to go through page by page or anything like that. But
Yeah, not page by page, but,
And I'll actually point out as well, so the process is that the board will have a discussion, and then at the end of the discussion, the board will direct staff, comment by comment, what they want, what the board wants in their letter. If they choose, first you guys have to decide whether or not you want to create a letter to send to Huntington Beach.
Yes.
And if you choose to, then we'll need you to tell us comment by comment what you would like included in the letter.
Okay.
So if you want to you could make a note of that as you go through your discussion. So.
Yeah, I don't know if every one of my concerns and comments is worth including in the letter, but I certainly would like to verbalize a few.
we'd like to hear them. Yeah, certainly. Okay, maybe we just go down the line and talk about questions and then concerns. Maybe we could talk about the concerns in the order that they are presented, I think, which I forget right now off the top of my head. Biological noise, traffic or others. I think that the biggies were the biological and the noise. So maybe and then after that, we kind of review our thoughts and determine if we want to write a letter and determine what are the key elements of that letter. And then maybe Sean can draft it for us. Okay, how about that?
Sounds good.
good.
Who would like to begin? Let's-
Well, I'll start. I've got two items that I picked out of it. Undoubtedly, this thing has been going on since 2016 without incident or significant negative impact to the environment. So in general terms, I think the whole program looks pretty good, but I did have two concerns with noise from the jets. They're talking about having flybys during the musical concert, which goes up till 11 o'clock at night. And I think that's too late to have that kind of noise implication going on, and especially since most of the flights come out of the Joint Forces Air Base, that puts them flying right over Seal Beach. And the second thing that I had is a safety issue with bird impacts. And I had done some additional research, and it pointed out, in fact, let me tell you what it said here. Most bird incidents happen during the time of the flight of the show. August through November is one of the time frames, and they happen nocturnally for the most part. Mm-hmm. And they're planning on having flyovers. I don't know whether it's going to involve the fighter jets or not, but that's the biggest concern, because naturally it's difficult to see a flock of birds in the dark, and especially if you're flying at jet speed. So that could be a major concern. And it says that some independent study that I did revealed that high-performance fighter jet engines with lower bypass ratios are more susceptible to catastrophic bird ingestion than are their big, high-bypass turbofan cousins. And so it says that fighter jet pilots take particular interest in avoiding birds, especially flocks of them. So there again, I think if they're going to have those types of flights, they should be curtailed probably around 5 o'clock. to avoid that issue. So those are my two key concerns that I took from the document.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah, I'll go next. Just like Michael there, noise was the biggest issue, but Leisure World as an example is in the flight path of the Long Beach Airport anyway, and then there's the Joint Forces Base and what they have flights coming out of there. So it's nothing new that we have flights around us and weekends, especially when the National Guard and as well as the other flights of the big jets. So we're used to that noise, but the complaints that I've heard is that they all come all at once during the show. But I think everybody understands that, so it's not a huge deal. I think the bigger issue, just like Michael had said, is the Bolsa Chica Ecological Preserve, and as to what the impact of that might be. And there appears to have done pretty good studies already on that, so I'm not sure that we would particularly have anything to add other than emphasize the studies that they've already done are significant in terms of what the birds might what their impacts to the birds might be. But bird strikes, that would be my concern. And I don't know if that's the biggest issue, but as I said, we're in a landing pattern anyway, and jets are all around us. So it's nothing new, but specifically on those 3 days, as well as the practice days, just like a whole week. But it's an event, so I don't personally have a problem, and I don't think my constituents do either. But I've not really looked at it that deeply. So those are my issues. Thank you.
I have two as well. I think that, in the current state of the air show, as Michael already pointed out, it's been going on since 2016 without any incidents or really any negative impacts. And I think everyone in the city really rather enjoys it. My concern is, again, with the nighttime flyovers, and they also mentioned a pyrotechnics display, so I assume fireworks, going until 11 o'clock. So that, to me, is a bit of a concern. The other part of that is that unless I'm misunderstanding the document, they're talking about potentially having a 5-day event, which is kind of the biggest concern for me, because now we're talking about, okay, now we're moving into the weekdays, and, there's a lot of folks that, work during the day, have children. I'm concerned about, obviously the noise level, but, the environmental impacts of doing a 5-day event. So we're putting additional strain on the environment, on our treasured ecological preserves. And, from a personal perspective, we're adding a lot of traffic, and weekdays are already pretty heavy with congestion. So I'm very concerned about what the impact would be if we were to extend this to a 5-day. When I was going through the document, I noticed that they, listed out some alternatives, and one alternative was the 2023 alternative, which was to keep the air show as it is. And I also read they had some arguments against why the 2023 alternative would not be suitable. They said, fewer activities, it lessens the positive economic impact, it lessens their ability to promote Huntington Beach. But frankly, I find that to be a rather disingenuous argument. I mean, you could extend any existing event and propose to extend it for a week and say, well, if you have to cut my event down, then you're lessening the economic impact. To me, that argument it bothers me, because I do find it to be a bit disingenuous, and that argument could be applied to just about anything. And then, if this is to run until 2034, and it provides a positive economic impact for the air show operator and the city of Huntington Beach, then what's to stop them from saying, well, hey, we ran it Wednesday through Sunday, let's just do the whole week. Let's just do Monday through Sunday. So those are my main concerns. I'm very, very concerned about this 5-day proposed event.
Okay. I hear all of what you guys have said, and I would like to add my comments to those, and also, if you bear with me, a couple other concerns that I have. But I'm just going to talk about the alternatives first, because under CEQA, you always have to have project alternatives. There's always the no project alternative, and that's not very satisfying. Have no project, that means we would get no air show, and it wouldn't meet any of the project objectives, to have fun and make money and taxes and education and all the things that air show does. I just want to step back for a minute and say, my husband and I are both nerdy engineers, and my husband worked his whole career in aerospace for the Boeing company. So, and then one more thing. So my uncle was actually killed on a bombing mission over Germany during World War II. So we are big supporters of the military, and we love the air show. So, sorry. So yeah, we love the air show, and I'm all for it. And I think all of us here think it's pretty cool. But when we talk now, again, alternatives to what's been proposed in the EIR, it wasn't just kind of a disingenuous dismissal. I would like to think, and I think we would ask Sean to consult with the city attorney about this, but my understanding of CEQA is that most of the project objectives would have to be met by a project alternative. Not all, but most. So a project alternative doesn't need to meet all project objectives. It doesn't. And it just must feasibly attain most of the basic objectives. Feasibly obtain most of the basic ones, while avoiding substantially lessening significant impacts. So that alternative, which I thought personally was a great alternative to State of the 2023 program, which was 3 days of air show like we're all familiar with, plus the pilots get to do some test runs and familiarization stuff Monday through, or during the week, I think it's Wednesday, Thursday, Monday through, I think starting Monday. So there'd be 1 or 2 flights or here and there, which I think, we might have noticed flying over our neighborhoods. But the air show would be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's it, just like it always has. Mm-hmm. And I really just think that alternative was thrown out, and there's no CEQA basis for it to not be further considered. It was thrown out, and it's a really good alternative, and it solves a lot of problems. Noise problems, traffic problems during the week on PCH. It's just, I think the show is going to wear out their welcome if they're subjecting people to 5 days of noise and traffic. So that, I think it would be great to see if the city attorney agrees with us that this is, they really have no legal grounds for dismissing alternative, the alternative 3, I think it was. That was or the alternative 2, I think it was to stick with their 2023 schedule. And if the attorney agrees, then, we should probably consider putting that in our letter. But the other things that I had problems with, and I hope we might want to comment on these too, when they looked at biological impacts, which you guys have brought up, they really focused on the showcase area. Now, some of the comments on the initial study and the notice of preparation, comments that they got from Bolsa Chica, Amigos de Bolsa Chica, the Bolsa Chica Land Trust, California Fish and Game, State Lands Commission, who owns and operates part of the Bolsa Chica Preserve. All these people said, wait a minute, you guys really haven't yet evaluated the impacts on birds in the Bolsa Chica area, and you really need to do that in the draft EIR. Well, I didn't really see, I saw some studies quoted about birds in the Bolsa Chica. There was a little talk about what kind of birds live there and what they like to do, but the impacts to birds in the Bolsa Chica weren't mentioned. And yet, just a couple years ago during the air show, there was an impact. They've been reporting these year after year, where the planes came right over the Bolsa Chica. They flew very low, and they scared all the birds into flight. Just the exact thing we don't want to do, cause a bird strike and kill or harm endangered birds. Now, California Fish and Game consider that a take. You know, you take of a protected species, you can go to jail for that. So each year they've had these bird harassments, these bird, call it flushing, you know, bringing birds into flight that are just hanging out on the ground because of the huge noise and low altitude of these planes, and nothing's been done to monitor it. So I'm concerned about that. It was not addressed in the EIR. And then when we go into the biological impacts, it wasn't really studied at all. And there was no mitigation for it. So the only mitigation that they provided under the biological mitigations was, I just brought it with me just in case here. Yeah, they were going to just have at the beginning of the project. So when the air show opens up, they would have a biological monitor go out there and look at the birds, you know. But there was no biological monitor that was going to be there in the Bolsa Chica that I saw, or no biological monitor monitoring where the flight paths are going or if they're flying lower than they're supposed to be. Because the flight path is clearly shown in the EIR is going just over the coast, and then one little skinny line doesn't go over the Bolsa Chica or come anywhere near. So there's no monitoring for that. There's no mitigation for that happening. And yet they've had almost bird strikes and definitely impacted species. And then the other thing, I guess, I've never noticed this, maybe I get there too late tonight. But they dropped these streamers at the beginning of the show from the air. And some of the streamers ended up in the Bolsa Chica. One of them landed over a piece of electrical equipment, which was a fire hazard, and they had to call emergency folks there to lift it up. And yet, and then other agencies were concerned about the streamers landing in the ocean, and, you know, fish and mammals, sea mammals getting wrapped up in these streamers, you know, and they're still proposing to do the streamers, dropping them in the wetlands and in the ocean and everything. So I just think that the mitigation for biology, and we'll talk about noise in a minute, but was really quite inadequate. And I can think of another 5 mitigations. One of them would be limiting the flights to 3 days, which would be one of the alternatives they dismissed. But, you know, also add monitoring. And then the other thing, now they're going to put an airstrip on the beach. Well, every time I've been around that beach, there's tons of birds on the shore. And a lot of them are seagulls. And, you know, you see little kids run after them and shoo them away. And then a second later, the seagulls are back. You know, they don't care. They're used to all this. So even if you had a biological monitor come out and check the beach at the beginning of the day during the air show, 10 minutes later, there are going to be birds back on the shore. And now one of these aircraft is going to come in for a landing on the beach. They're going to build this temporary runway on the beach for landings and takeoffs right in front of the crowds. And I just think the chance of an airstrike, the chance of, a bird getting hit or for an accident and a hazard wasn't even addressed. So I'm not an aviation expert, but it doesn't sound like a great idea. This is something new they're going to introduce they've never had before. And I don't think they've assessed the biological or hazard impacts of it appropriately. So I think they could at least mitigate that. So I just don't think it was credible, the flight path they showed in the EIR. It's just this little skinny line. It's all offshore, except for when it finally goes back to the Air Force Base. I know that last year we saw flights coming from Long Beach, and I didn't see Long Beach even mentioned as a flight path. But I know that little skinny line, they're way off that. I mean, bless their hearts, these pilots, you know, they're doing what they think they should be doing, but obviously they didn't know about a designated flight path that they need to stick on and stay out of the Bolsa Chica. So, all right, and I want to talk a minute about the hazards. Before we leave biological, the EIR determined that all the biological impacts were less than significant, even when there have been significant impacts in the past. and they provide no additional mitigation or explanation for why those wouldn't occur in the future. So that's just a no. I just think they really need to work on that. The other thing, when we get to hazards, the only hazard they considered was bird strike, essentially. And they said this monitor that's going to go out at the start of each air show is going to make sure there's no birds that could cause an airstrike hazard. And I just don't think that's adequate. I think they should have all-day bird monitoring if they're going to do a landing strip on the beach. They should have at least once a day bird monitoring if they're going to continue their usual flights. They should limit the flights to 3 days, and they shouldn't dump any streamers. And then finally, if you guys will put up with me here for another second, the noise. So, the noise impact, they declared that to be significant, but unavoidable. And the only impact that they even considered being significant but unavoidable was from the concerts at night after the flying is done. Those start, I guess, at 5 and go to 11, or sometime in the evening they go to 11. But for Seal Beach, at least, I don't think we hear the concert noise, and I don't think that's, the most significant impact to us. It's the flights, and it's a significant impact to birds and to citizens living in Seal Beach. And I have heard a lot of people have told me that, 3 days is really hard to bear. College Park East, it's really hard. But 5 days of that, I think they're going to wear out their welcome. And when people like you mentioned are working from home, kids are doing their homework, I just think that's a lot. I think some mitigations, I think the EIR needs to address the noise from the airplanes. I think the music isn't the only noise they need to address in the EIR. And they might consider restricting the flight path. They might consider flights Friday through Sunday only. Even if they did extend to a 5-day, just have the flights be, Friday through Sunday like we've had in the past. And also, since my husband and I go there, we're old, so we've lost a lot of our hearing already. We always go to the air show with hearing protection. And I've been up at Pacific City looking, having lunch and watching the air show from the balcony there. You literally feel the planes in your chest. It's like the noise is so intense, it shakes your whole body. And there's kids there all day, little kids. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they should have hearing protection on. People that are at the show all day, they are going to have almost certainly permanent hearing impairment. I think maybe this is crazy, but I think it would be nice as a mitigation to have some warning to attendees. Hey, there's going to be some loud noises here, really loud, like over 100 dB. Consider hearing protection for you and your kids. Maybe they could hand it out. Maybe they could have their vendor sell it. Those little foamy earplugs, they cost like 10 cents each or something, each pair. They're not. It'd just be a nice mitigation, and it'll express goodwill and concern for the community's health. And one other thing, again, a question for Sean or the planners. Our noise ordinance, as far as I understand, there's restrictions in our noise ordinance for exterior noise, for residential areas, exterior, and the noise standard level for that is 70 dB. So if 70 dB is exceeded for any period of time by 20 dBs or more, that's a violation of Seal Beach Noise Code as I understand it. So we take 70 dB and we add 20. 90 dB would be our external noise standard level for any period of time. It's even lower for an hour or 5 minutes an hour, 15 minutes an hour. Those are much lower standards, but really 90 dB, those planes are not, the military planes are often 90 dB. They're well often over 100 dB. So I'm not really sure that it would even meet our noise standards, these flyovers over residential areas. And there's been no mitigation offered for that. And there's easy mitigation. Restrict the flight paths, provide some warnings for people to, protect their hearing by staying inside or wearing hearing protection during the air show. Those would be at least, attempts to mitigate the problem. And I don't see any of that in the EIR. And I think that is the extent of most of my comments. And now that we've all had a chance to hear any more discussion, any more second thoughts about these?
Yeah, I don't know if it would, I don't know if it would be something that would typically be included in an EIR, but I would like to see a little bit more. I mean, they have to know what they're planning. And so I would like to see a little more detail about what this proposed schedule is. I mean, maybe, this is all, maybe we're making a mountain out of a molehill and these weekday events are simply going to be concerts on the beach. But we don't know that because I'm not seeing anything in the document that's going to say, oh, well, no, you guys don't need to worry about it. It's just family fun activities on the sand, Wednesday and Thursday, and then we're going to take to the skies Friday through Sunday, which, again, is a little bit more of what we're accustomed to.
Yes.
So I would hope that when the final EIR is released, that they provide a little bit more insight about what exactly they're planning to do, especially on the weekdays.
Well, and the use of that runway that's going to be on the beach too. Undoubtedly, it's not going to be long enough to take off a jet plane or something like that. But what are they going to use it for? Are they going to bring in helicopters and land there, or are they going to, is it just for drones? I saw something in there about races, and that wasn't explained in any detail either. I don't know what's racing or any of that sort of thing. So that's a...
Yeah, so we can't have sufficient comments unless we know exactly what they're planning to do, I guess. And from a mechanical perspective, is the city staff going to prepare this letter, or is that something that we need to give you notes beyond what we've already done tonight?
Anything in the letter that comes from the EQCB as a board needs to be discussed tonight, because if it's discussed after the meeting, it's considered a chain serial meeting, chain discussion, which is prohibited by the Brown Act. That does not prohibit the individual members from sending their own comments or from attending the public hearing itself, where the decision makers in Huntington Beach will be available to answer those questions, or the staff who's presenting the project.
So the outcome of today's meeting would be, number one, as an example, the EQCB board wants to submit something, for that particular process. And then the notes used from tonight, that would be used as the basis for what you would prepare as staff. And then if we individually want to do something beyond that, we would submit that, or anybody in the public can do that as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. The idea being that we are in I should say Huntington Beach is in a public review period. And so the idea is that the public in general can provide comments and questions that the decision makers may not have been aware of and can consider during their own hearing.
Sure.
Yeah.
By the way, that the date for final comments are due April 7th, February 20th through April 7th. They gave 45 days for comments, which is fairly generous. They can give up to 60, but it's usually 30, so that was good. So I totally agree with all of you. I think it's really important that we get our key comments here discussed tonight, kind of checked off so they can go into a letter so we don't really miss them. And you guys all brought up one thing that I really didn't have a chance, and I'd like to elaborate just a tad more. We can't, I think, Dawn, you said we can't really evaluate the project or comment fully on the project if we don't know the project scope, and that's true. And that is in itself an important comment, that the EIR doesn't adequately describe the project. And it did almost seem a little sneaky at times, because I did read in one part that the helicopters were going to land on the beach landing strip, but they left it open for any other kind of aircraft too, and they didn't mention specifically what.
I'm sorry. They do short takeoff and short landing competition on those. That's Wednesday, Thursday. I think that's a separate category of everything. It's not the kind that
Yeah,
comes out of the, those are actually airplanes, and they actually take off at like 30 feet.
yeah, okay. It just wasn't very specific, and they said there's going to be drones. Some drones are big, some drones are little. I don't know. So I think it would be nice if they would be a little more definitive.
I'll also add, if there is interest in the individual board members sending follow-up and you're wanting more detailed information, and within the executive summary is the contact person that is presenting this case, Connor Highland, with the contact information. And so Connor should be able to, if there's anything that you're unclear on, you can reach out at any time. I know when we have a EIR open for public review, even before or after, I'm always available for questions. I regularly have people reach out to me for things that they're not clear about.
So you're suggesting that we individually ask our questions of Connor, or?
Yeah, because the meeting tonight will be the only opportunity for a collective board letter. And what I'm hearing from the board is that you're expressing that you don't have enough information. So if you wanted to get more information and follow up, then that would be the appropriate method.
I think what we want to do tonight is express comments, specific comments on what's missing in the EIR, so it can be addressed in the final. Our comments would be included in that final. The final would have to address those comments and add that. And we are not going to be the only ones. I am sure that there's going to be others that are, some of the agencies, the responsible agencies will be submitting letters as well. So I think it's important that we say, here's what wasn't in there, it's not adequately expressed, because then it will be a public comment, it will be addressed and put in the EIR. And I think, the EQCB, we should use our clout to the extent possible. And great if we want to send these as individual comments, but even better if we can send them as comments from the EQCB, I think. I think Huntington Beach will listen more to us Seal Beach folks if we send a letter from the group. So maybe we can just go through and capture some of these things that we'd like to comment on. And so Sean can pull them together. Is that a good approach, Sean?
Yeah, well, first you would decide whether or not if you want to send a letter.
Sure.
And when you don't need to do a vote for that. You could just express that, and then we'll go comment by comment.
Don?
Yes.
Letter?
Oh, yeah.
Letter? Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll start off with some things here. And so I think the project area itself was not defined. It did not include the flight path. It did not include streamer dispersal or flight path. The project area was often focused for the purpose of impacts and mitigation. It was focused only on the show center area, which is just a small portion of the project area. So that's kind of not right. I'd say the only noise impacts that were assessed and mitigated were concert noise. What about the rest of the noise?
Well,
Should be-
I think the jet noise at night, again, I think they're wanting to couple flyovers with the musical concert, and that can last till 11 o'clock at night. And
I think they need to address
Yeah.
what's going to fly over and what mitigation they're going to have for the noise impact, if any.
Good one, absolutely.
Yeah, I think overall the concern about any event activities running until 11 o'clock is an issue. Again, I think we're all accustomed to kind of, a cessation, a ceasing of loud noises around 10 o'clock. And so, we're pushing it to 11 and, kind of like my earlier comment about, well, first it's Wednesday through Sunday, then what, and so we're saying, okay, well, now it's till 11, but, in 2035, are they going to try to push it to midnight? So I do have concerns about the length of the events and how long it's going to run into the night.
Yeah. The length over the weekend, the length
Right.
over the hours. Yeah.
Right. And then, to kind of bookend that comment, the current proposed air show for 2024 to 2034 of being up to 5 days is also a concern. The impact on, families, on the environment. I mean, everything that is stated here in this report, a lot of this information and these kind of retrospective conclusions that they've arrived at based on prior airshow events, all of this would have to be multiplied now, because now we've effectively almost doubled the event length. So all of these environmental impacts are nearly twofold. And that's not even taking into a fact that there's a lot more folks on this, out and about, especially in Seal Beach, where, we would likely see a lot of traffic increases, kids are in school, things like that. I have a lot of concerns about, running this thing on a Wednesday, on a Thursday. And then that kind of leads me to my third comment, which is, okay, well, perhaps this isn't that big of a deal. Maybe they're not running the airplanes, on Wednesday and Thursday. We still need more information about what this itinerary is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are pyrotechnics? Because they kind of made those different than the fireworks, or sometimes it sounded like
Right,
and fireworks or pyrotechnics.
Right, and I've seen it listed both ways. And they mention fireworks and they mention pyrotechnics. So are they the same? Are they different?
I think we should ask for a definition of what those are and when they happen.
So if I could just back up for a moment, just for clarity of the comments. The first comment I have is lack of clarity in the project description, such as project area, flight paths, information on the itinerary, definition of pyrotechnics. Second comment, noise impacts, especially as it relates to nighttime noise impacts going to 11 p.m. And what could potential mitigation measures be for later activities that go towards 11 p.m. And then the third comment is the extension of the event to 5 days, especially as it relates to weekdays for families, working people, and kids going to school, and those potential impacts.
Yeah, add to the noise, I think we want to add the impacts, noise impacts and proposed mitigation for flight noise. Not addressed whatsoever. Not a word on it. It was just concert noise.
Proposed mitigation for flight noise.
Yeah, assess the noise from the flights, assess the impacts of that noise, and provide mitigation to the extent feasible for that noise.
And with respect to the extension of the event, I think, listing the impacts to people is definitely important, but I think there's going to be a significant environmental impact as well. If they're continuing, the flights and everything else across additional days, everything that we've already seen and how it's impact, Bolsa Chica and the ocean and the birds, I think that's going to be multiplied.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I heard from the audience pets. I'm just saying that so it's recorded.
Cats, yeah.
we want to find out what is landing on the beach, besides helicopters. Are there drones? Are there larger aircraft? I know in general we got a little guidance on that from the audience, but I think it should be spelled out in the EIR. I did not see it there.
And what's going to be involved in those races, the flight races? I don't know.
Yeah, oh, right, there were flight races. I don't know if those are
Yeah, there's flight races,
paper
but it doesn't say what they're flying.
kind of crazy that they didn't say. On the biological impacts, we also want to ask them to consider impacts and mitigation to Bolsa Chica, not just at the show center area. They limited that to the show center area, which is directly in front of the audience on the beach. We want them to reconsider the alternative. Let me get the right number here.
Yeah,
alternative
that
for
would be
20.
alternative 2,
Yep.
the 2023 air show alternative. And I'm not quite sure how to verbalize this or if this is worth including, but again, I feel that their argument against the 2023 alternative is, it's just not suitable. You can't, how do I put this? I just find it difficult to believe that you're saying that, oh, well, if you're not allowing us to extend it, then you're negatively impacting us, economically, and families won't have as much time to gather. Again, that argument could be made about extending almost any event,
I wrote down their actual.
But I'm not really sure how we could verbalize that into the letter.
They said alternative number 2, the 2023 airshow alternative, would not meet all objectives in their entirety, and therefore it was eliminated. There was no CEQA provision to eliminate an objective because it doesn't meet. It's to eliminate an alternative because it doesn't meet objectives in their entirety. An alternative, a viable, feasible alternative, only has to meet most of the objectives. Doesn't have to meet all of them. That was just outrageous. So anyway, for those of us who have written EIRs or the project description is really important because you want to make sure you put in all the project objectives that you can to eliminate someone getting rid of your project. So you want to say, oh, my objective is to make a lot of money. My objective is to build the biggest apartment building I could possibly build. My objective is to have the largest air show in America. You do all this stuff, and then the project alternatives that are considered will never meet those objectives, and therefore it gets eliminated. And that is why CEQA says you only need to meet some of the objectives. Because otherwise, there would never be a project alternative that could be considered. So anyway, that was
right,
outrageous.
and that's
what you're saying.
Yeah, and I mean, by their own admission, the 2023 airshow alternative is the fewest environmental impacts and is considered the environmentally superior alternative.
And it meets most of the project objectives very well. I think the show has been very successful, and we all enjoy it.
Yeah.
So as comment number 5, reconsider alternative 2 as it meets most of the objectives and it continues the air show and how it has been conducted
Love it.
in recent years.
Perfect.
See, did I miss anything?
Yeah, the alternative number 2 really mitigates a lot of the impacts that they themselves have identified and that we have as well. I would like to add, if there is going to be takeoffs and landings on the beach, landing strip, I think they need to have a biological monitor on site for those takeoffs and landings to help prevent bird strike. I mean, I hate some 12-foot drone that hits a bird and lands on the audience and somebody dies. Think we got it, you guys, or?
I think so.
So I'll do one last summary, and following that, the chair will need to ask for a motion for the board to consider and approve the letter. So the comment letter consists of 6 comments, the first being unclear project description. It should include the project area, flight paths, what will be involved in the flights, what is landing on the beach, what is the landing on the beach, and more information on the itinerary of events for each individual day, and what is the definition of pyrotechnics. Number 2, noise impacts, especially as it relates to noise impacts that go into the evening up till 11 p.m. What are the mitigation for night noise impacts? And what are proposed mitigations for flight noise? Number 3, extension of the event to 5 days, as it impacts people during the work and school week, Wednesday and Thursday included. As well as having expanded environmental impacts within, such as with Bolsa Chica and other biological, by extending the event, and in addition, impacts to pets during that time period. Number 4, consider the impacts and mitigation to Bolsa Chica. Number 5, reconsider alternative 2. As it meets most of the objectives and continues the air show and how it has been conducted in recent years. And the 6th comment, if there are going to be takeoffs and landings from the beach, there should be a biological monitor to help mitigate potential bird strikes.
Can I add one more comment? On the streamers, whatever they are, I don't know what they are, but they landed in the Bolsa Chica, and I guess they're long trash things. I mean, they become trash when they land in the ocean or in the wetlands, and they landed on electrical equipment and almost caused a fire or whatever. So could they consider eliminating them or retrieving them when they fall into the ocean, or disposing of them properly, or I don't know, just assessing their impacts and the mitigation for streamer problems?
So assess impacts and mitigation for streamers.
How do you propose to retrieve them before they end up in the environment? I don't know whether they're Mylar or plastic or what. Like Mylar balloons, cause power outages.
I think what you said at the end is it articulates it pretty well. What can we do to mitigate the impact of the streamers on the environment, considering that, once they've streamed, they're essentially rubbish. It's trash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, thanks for that.
Did we want to add anything about the pyrotechnics?
Yeah, what are they?
Well, we're just looking for, I think at this point, clarity on what exactly it is. Are they,
Well, that's part of comment 1 is asking for a definition of what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good.
all right.
I think we've got it, you guys.
Yeah. Let's run that through ChatGPT and send it out.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we did have that opportunity while you're here.
I know, but you have,
Sean, if that's allowed, I'm all good with it. We have
The,
one person.
you don't have to put it in the thing. I just want to offer a couple comments from CPE.
the chair can open it up for comment.
Yeah, can we reopen? Let's
Okay.
reopen for comments.
And I don't have a pre-side on this. I just want to put some more comments out there. So first of all, the animals, when the show is on for those 3 days, it's not 3 days, it's 5 days, because we've got Thursday and then they all come back Sunday, and then they fly out on Monday. So for College Park East, it is already 5-day show from the sound perspective. So during when it's going on in next door, oh my God, the comments are incredible. And they range from, this is patriotic, it's beautiful, it's fantastic. And then there's, my dog has been under a bed for 3 days. This is like 4th of July. I mean, the comments are just so, and so there's a lot of complaints for animals. And 4th of July, we know, is one night, you take your, but again, 3 days, and if you go to 5, so we've got the whole dog thing particularly. I hear a lot of those comments. So I wanted to comment on, so I do live near the base. I happen to like the air show. I think it's, I'm very much a patriot. When they fly over our houses, it is like they are in your living room. I mean, it is, like you said, it feels like it's in your chest. It's like in your kitchen. I mean, it's loud. And and there's a lot of people where I live that'll run outside, wave at them. There are people who salute the planes, and then there are people who hate the planes. So, we've got everything, love it to hate it, and in between. So this is, it's a challenge, to find the middle ground here. So I just wanted to pass that on. Those are some of the comments that I've seen in next door, from my area. And when you say if the show, the music would end at 11, that means if the planes are doing whatever, that means they come over where I am at 11:15. I mean, and so it's not end at 11 and goodbye everybody. So we have to consider, I'm not sure what that time frame is. And so again, we've got a lot of people that maybe go to bed earlier, they work, they want to be able to go to sleep at a certain time. 10 is kind of the norm. So I think the night flight is going to be an issue for most people, especially, and if you have babies, small kids and stuff, it's going to be an impact. So again, I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just saying we're going to have to balance the people who love it and the people who do not love it and find out what we can do to mitigate some of those. But I would not discount the animals, the dogs. A lot of traffic on that one. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so very
We're going to have
much.
to need doggy ear.
Right. Sedatives, I think. Thank you. So one other thing maybe we want to keep in mind. So these comments that we submit, they'll go into the final EIR. They're required to list all the comments, so they'll be on the record, and they're required to address them. So if we have a comment, why didn't you define what pyrotechnics is? They would have to define what pyrotechnics are. So that'll all be good. And then after the final EIR is released, still a little chance to bite at the apple there, because it will have to go before the city of Huntington Beach to be certified by the city council. I might go to planning commission first, I'm not sure, but it's at Huntington Beach. But it'll have to be certified. And so it'll probably, I know I can imagine there's a lot of pressure to support this Huntington Beach event from the city council, but I'm sure that they'll also be interested in the comments that we submit as a city, as a board here. And so hopefully before it's certified, we'll get resolution on these issues that we have raised tonight. So I think it was a really worthwhile meeting. And you guys are great.
So you'll need to ask for a motion for the board to approve the letter to be drafted and sent over.
Yes, I shall. So you would draft the letter and send it to?
Correct. So the motion would be the comments that I read in.
But are you going to draft the letter first for our review and approval, Sean? That's my question.
We will draft with the comments, and you can look through for copy edits, but you won't be able to add anything after
No
that.
substance.
Right.
Correct. All right. So I would like to raise a motion that we all agree that Sean should draft a letter on our behalf with the comments that we expressed and shared here tonight. Basically a comment to to the draft environmental impact report to the city of Huntington Beach. And I would like a motion on that to agree.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Great. Sean, do we want to call that?
Yes, I'll take roll. Board Member Villanueva,
Aye.
Board Member Depew,
Aye.
Chair,
Aye.
sorry, I'm late. I've been up since 4 a.m.
Oh, my.
Board Member Horning,
Yes.
passes 4-0.
All right. Well, let's see. Look at my cheat sheet here. Are we ready to join? Any further board concerns before we adjourn?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I,
Oh, right.
Do we jump over staff concerns?
yeah, let's hear about the staff.
Staff concerns. Oh.
Staff,
Are you getting sleep?
Thank you.
I had to drive my wife to the airport. I'm good though.
Hopefully it was Long Beach.
No, it's LAX.
Oh, wow.
But it was early enough. But I'm good. I understand that my only concern would be to bring up what Board
Yes.
Member Horning brought up earlier, but I believe he's going to do so.
Yeah, I just, three things. One is this proposed time change that we could be more consistent with what the ordinary council meetings are, like at 7 o'clock as an example. So that would be on like the next agenda.
Correct. So if I'm taking direction to put that on the agenda for the next meeting. That way we can duly notice it for the public. And then the board will take a vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay, and then I have two other things. One is some sort of an update on the housing element EIR process. We were told last time that it was going to be pretty soon, so just a little official as to where we are on that, and if there's anything they'd like to share at that time, that'd be great.
I'm pretty knee deep in it. So no, we're very close. I know we said that last time. We're doing final internal reviews. There's a lot of little minor tweaks. It's a much larger document than this one, and we're very much, several members of staff are scrutinizing every word of it. So we do anticipate it to be released fairly soon, within the next two-ish months, maybe.
Yeah, just an update as to whatever you want to say. And then finally, the old G&M site, which is downtown here, as to maybe Orange County, maybe they could be, Orange County Health Department, they could be asked to give us a little report, because I know that they're doing that to people who have been at their meetings, but it's not been discussed, like in the newspaper or within this board here, where I think it's a good purview item for us, because it's like shows, is there contamination or is there not? And, that's a public interest.
If I could add to that, because I do follow that project. There was a report just released last week, a pretty significant report on findings and risk assessment that really does deserve some public comment. For OCHA is soliciting comments on that, so it might not be a bad idea to ask them. We could host a meeting here in Seal Beach. OCHA hasn't had a public meeting in a long time on that project, and it I don't know if that's deemed appropriate content for the EQCB, but it seems to me like it would be for OCHA to come and present the findings, the risk assessment results.
I regularly speak with the county environmental health. I think that they have attempted to have community meetings. They have a significant email list that they send out, which Susan, I imagine you're part of. But I could reach out and see if they're interested in trying to set up another meeting.
Great. I might just add one thing too, if I may, a separate topic. So this Saturday, there is a workshop being offered at the Los Cerritos wetlands right here at First Street and PCH. I think it starts at 8 or 10. I'm not sure right now. I'd have to check my calendar. It starts at 8. And it is on the, the announcement for that is on the city manager's newsletter, so you might just check there. But I really recommend folks attending if you possibly can, because there's this group called the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority, and we have one representative from Seal Beach, which thank goodness, because a lot of the Los Cerritos wetlands are in Seal Beach. And that's Joe Kalmick, our city councilman from District 1. But they have been working away on a restoration plan for some time now, with huge amount of grants. They have, I think, $25 million of grant money for the restoration. And the restoration project's borders are City Park, our beloved Gum Grove City Park, and it borders our Hill Community, District 3. There are some trails in Gum Grove that connect over to trails in Pelican Point. It's starting to be kind of cool connectivity. You can actually do a little hiking in there. But the trail that I've seen proposed for the wetland restoration does not link up to either one of those, and it kind of goes to the middle of nowhere and dumps the trail goers kind of in front of the Hill property near Gum Grove. So it might be something we want to consider. It is, it's not our restoration project, it's their restoration project. It is in our city. It does adjoin our neighbors, our neighborhoods, our community, and one of our city parks. So it might be worth going Saturday and learning and making some comments. I'm going to be there. And if there were no more board concerns or staff concerns, we now adjourn this meeting of the Environmental Quality Control Board.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks.